For 40 years, I balanced ledgers and managed accounts, my life dictated by the crisp lines of spreadsheets and the quiet hum of an office computer. I live alone now, a widow for the past 5 years, and my entire world has been meticulously planned around a single, shimmering goal: a peaceful retirement in a house by the sea. That dream finally came true when I bought a small, sun-bleached cottage on the coast, a place meant for quiet mornings and the gentle rhythm of the waves. But my meticulously planned serenity was about to be shattered by the one person I thought would protect it: my own son, who saw my sanctuary not as a home, but as a hotel. Before this story unfolds, I'd love to connect with you. Please let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is in your corner of the world. It's amazing to see how far these stories can travel. The day I got the keys to the cottage was one of the purest moments of joy I've ever known. It wasn't a mansion by any means. It was a modest, two-bedroom home with a wide porch, peeling white paint that I found charming, and a crooked little path that led directly onto the sand. I named it the Sandpiper's Rest. For 40 years, I'd managed the finances for a mid-sized manufacturing firm. I was good at it. I understood numbers, risk, and long-term investment. Every bonus, every cautiously invested penny, every decision to pack my own lunch instead of buying it. It was all for this. My late husband, Mark, and I had dreamed of this together. After he passed from a sudden heart attack, the dream felt distant, shrouded in grief. But slowly I realized that building this life for myself was the best way to honor the life we'd planned. The first month was paradise. I woke with the sun, a cup of coffee in hand, and watched the gulls chase the retreating tide. I planted a small garden of salt-resistant herbs and tomatoes in terracotta pots on the porch. I took long walks, collected sea glass, and started reading all the novels I'd stockpiled for decades. I even made a friend. Arthur, my next-door neighbor, was a retired fire chief with a warm smile and eyes that had seen a thing or two. He was quiet, respectful, and had a beautiful golden retriever named Rusty who would often trot over to my porch for a head scratch. We'd share a glass of iced tea in the evenings, talking about everything and nothing. It was the peaceful, predictable life I had earned. My son, Leo, was my only child. I loved him dearly, but our lives had diverged significantly. While I valued stability and careful planning, Leo chased thrills. He'd jumped from one get-rich-quick scheme to another since he'd graduated college. His latest venture was as a crypto day trader, a world I couldn't begin to comprehend. All I knew was that it involved wild financial swings, a lot of jargon about hodling and mooning, and a lifestyle that seemed to be funded by sheer, terrifying risk. He lived in the city, 2 hours away, in a sleek, minimalist apartment that looked more like a showroom than a home. When I told him about buying the beach house, his reaction was enthusiastic. "That's awesome, Mom! A beach house? We can have so much fun there this summer." I smiled at his use of we. It was sweet. I pictured quiet weekends with him, maybe grilling some fish, playing a board game like we used to when he was a boy. It would be a chance to reconnect, away from the frantic energy of his city life. "Of course, sweetheart," I told him over the phone, the sound of the ocean a gentle backdrop. "You're welcome anytime. Just give me a little notice so I can make sure the guest room is ready for you." "Totally, Mom. I can't wait to see it. I'm so proud of you. You deserve this." His words warmed my heart. He understood. He saw this as my sanctuary, the culmination of a life's work. My son, despite his chaotic career choices, was still the thoughtful boy I had raised. Or so I believed. My belief in the quiet, respectful weekends we would share was my first, and perhaps most significant, miscalculation. The numbers on my retirement spreadsheet had all added up perfectly, but I had failed to properly account for the variable of my son's entitlement, and the disruptive force he was about to bring into my life, his new girlfriend, Brianna. The first sign of trouble came not as a storm warning, but as a casual, last-minute text message that lit up my phone one sunny Friday afternoon. It was the beginning of a tide I never saw coming, one that threatened to wash away the very peace I had worked my entire life to build. I sat on my porch, watching the gentle waves, completely oblivious to the tsunami of disrespect that was heading straight for my shore. The text from Leo arrived as I was watering my tomato plants. "Hey Mom, great news. Me and Bree are heading your way for the weekend. See you in a couple hours. Can't wait to meet her." My first feeling was a flicker of excitement, quickly followed by a prickle of annoyance. A couple hours? I'd specifically asked for a little notice. I had planned a quiet evening with a book and a glass of wine. Now I had to dash to the store for extra groceries, change the linens in the guest room, and mentally prepare for company. Still, he was my son, and I was genuinely curious to meet Brianna. He'd been dating her for about 3 months and talked about her constantly. She was, in his words, a total game changer. When their sleek, white sports car, Elise, I was almost certain, roared into my quiet gravel driveway, it felt like an alien spacecraft landing in a nature preserve. Leo hopped out, grinning, looking like a magazine ad in his designer sunglasses and trendy linen shirt. And then Brianna emerged from the passenger side. She was undeniably stunning. A cascade of blonde hair, impossibly white teeth, and an outfit that looked more like a Miami nightclub than a sleepy coastal town. She was also filming. Her phone was mounted on a small blimble, its lens pointed directly at me as I stood on my porch, wiping my hands on my apron. "And here's the adorable little beach cottage I was telling you guys about. And that's Leo's mom. Isn't she the cutest?" I froze. I was being broadcast to an audience of strangers. Leo rushed forward and gave me a hug. "Mom, this is Brianna. Bree, this is my mom, Eleanor." "It is so amazing to finally meet you, Eleanor. Your place is so rustic. My followers are gonna love the vintage aesthetic." I forced a smile. "It's lovely to meet you too, Brianna. Welcome to the Sandpiper's Rest." The name seemed to amuse her. She picked up her phone again. Guys, she even named it, the Sandpiper's Rest. How cute is that? The weekend went downhill from there. The we Leo had mentioned in his texts turned out to be a royal we. Brianna was a social media influencer, and her entire life was content. My quiet cottage was now her personal film set. She took videos of my charming old-fashioned kitchen, did a fit check in front of my heirloom grandfather clock, and even staged a candid, laughing photo session on my porch swing, which involved Leo tickling her for 10 minutes straight while she screamed for her followers. My peace was shattered by a constant stream of narration, notifications, and the synthetic beat of trending pop songs she used for her video backgrounds. They didn't just bring themselves, they brought their lifestyle. They stayed up late, talking loudly on the porch until well after midnight, their voices carrying across the still night air. They left wet towels on the floor, sandy shoes in the living room, and a collection of empty energy drink cans on my kitchen counter. Leo, who I had raised to be tidy and considerate, had seemed to forget every lesson. He was completely under Brianna's spell, orbiting her like a moon, his only purpose to assist in her content creation. The breaking point of that first visit came on Saturday afternoon. I was hoping to have a quiet lunch with Leo, to actually talk to him. Instead, he announced, "Hey Mom, a few of our friends are in the area, so I told him to swing by for a bit. Hope that's cool." It was not cool. An hour later, 2 more cars pulled into my driveway. 4 more people, all in their 20s and 30s, loud and boisterous, descended upon my home. They brought a giant inflatable flamingo, a cooler of alcoholic seltzers, and a portable speaker that was immediately cranked up to a deafening volume.
My tranquil beach became a party zone. Brianna and her friends spent the next 4 hours taking hundreds of photos and videos, posing on the flamingo, doing yoga poses in the sand at sunset, and splashing each other in the shallow water, all while screaming and laughing. I felt like a stranger in my own home. I retreated into my bedroom, the bass from the speaker vibrating through the floorboards. I could hear them through the closed window, shouting over the music. I saw my neighbor Arthur walk out onto his porch, look over at the chaos, and then retreat back inside with a concerned frown. I was embarrassed. This wasn't the quiet retirement I had dreamed of. This was a nightmare. When they finally left late Sunday evening, leaving a trail of sand, empty bottles, and general disarray in their wake, the silence they left behind was a relief. Leo gave me a quick,
The visit in 2 weeks turned into a visit the very next weekend. Leo called on Friday morning. Hey mom, change of plans. Bree has a huge collab with a swimwear brand, and they thought your beach would be the perfect backdrop. We're heading down now. We'll have a couple of photographers with us. It's a massive opportunity for her. He didn't ask, he informed. My home, my private stretch of sand, was now a commercial photography location. I felt a surge of anger, but I swallowed it down. Leo, this is my home, not a studio, and I'm not comfortable with strangers coming here to do a photo shoot. His voice turned cold, laced with a guilt-tripping tone he had perfected over the years. Mom, come on. It's just for a few hours. This is a big deal for Brianna's career. I thought you'd be supportive. We're already on our way. The emotional blackmail worked, as it always did. What was I to do? Turn them away when they arrived at my doorstep? So I relented, my voice tight. Fine, Leo, but this is the last time. It was not the last time. That weekend was worse than the first. The couple of photographers was a full crew. 2 photographers, a lighting assistant, a makeup artist, and another influencer who was part of the collab. They trampled my newly planted dune grass to get the perfect shot. They used my living room as a dressing room, leaving discarded clothing and makeup wipes on my antique armchair. They helped themselves to my fridge without asking. Brianna and her friend posed for hours on my beach, my porch, and even in my garden, wearing an array of impossibly small bikinis. Leo acted as the executive producer, directing the crew, fetching drinks for Brianna, and generally behaving as if he owned the place. He never once asked if I was okay or if I needed anything. He was completely absorbed in Brianna's world, a world where I was just a background character, the proprietor of the quaint set. The worst part was the complete lack of respect for my privacy. I walked into my own kitchen to find one of the photographers taking close-up shots of my vintage kettle. Great texture for B-roll, he'd said, without a hint of apology. I felt like an exhibit in a museum of my own life. That Sunday night, after they had all packed up and left in a flurry of air kisses and promises to tag me on Insta, I felt a profound sense of violation. I sat on my porch, staring out at the ocean, feeling utterly powerless. My retirement dream was turning into a recurring invasion. My son, the person I loved most in the world, was the ringleader. That's when an idea, born of desperation, began to form. I was a retired accountant. My entire career was built on observation, documentation, and finding anomalies in the data. I realized I was treating this as a family problem, relying on emotion and appeals to a sense of decency that Leo clearly no longer possessed. I needed to reframe it. This was a business problem. My asset, my home, was being misused, and to solve a business problem, I needed data. The next day, I drove to an electronics store in the next town over. I purchased a set of small, high-definition security cameras. They were discreet, Wi-Fi enabled, and had excellent audio recording capabilities. I spent the afternoon installing them. I put one in the corner of the living room, tucked behind a stack of books on a high shelf. I placed another on the porch, concealed within a hanging basket of ferns. A third I positioned in the kitchen, angled to cover the main counter and the back door.
They weren't meant to be hidden from someone searching for them, but they were subtle enough to go unnoticed by people who were only focused on themselves. I felt a pang of guilt as I set them up. I was spying on my own son. But then I remembered the feeling of being a stranger in my own house, the sound of their party raging while I hid in my bedroom. This wasn't about spying. It was about protecting myself. It was about gathering evidence. The next weekend, as expected, they returned. Just a chill one this time, Mom, Leo promised on the phone. But this time, I was prepared. From my bedroom, I could log into the camera feed on my laptop. I watched and I listened. The chill weekend involved another set of friends, more loud music, and Brianna filming a What I Eat in a Day Beach House Edition video, which involved her critiquing my pantry items to her followers. Literally zero organic options, guys, she sighed into her phone, holding up my box of perfectly good crackers. But the most damning evidence came on Saturday night. I had excused myself to bed early, feigning a headache. The real reason was so I could monitor the cameras without interruption. Leo, Brianna, and their two friends were in the living room drinking the expensive wine I had been saving. "Your mom is a saint for letting us use this place," one of the friends said. Brianna scoffed, a sound like air leaking from a balloon. "Please, we're doing her a favor. This place would be a sad, dusty old lady museum if we didn't bring some life into it." Leo laughed. He actually laughed. "She's got to get used to it. The plan is working perfectly." "What plan?" the friend asked. Brianna leaned in conspiratorially, her voice dropping slightly, but still perfectly audible to the microphone on the camera. "The long-term content strategy. We use this place all summer, build the coastal charm brand aesthetic. It's free, it's authentic, and my engagement is through the roof. Then in the fall, we convince her to let us rent it out on Airbnb. We'll manage it, of course, for a small fee." Leo added his part. "She's sitting on a gold mine and doesn't even know it. A place like this could pull in thousands a week in the high season. We're just, you know, field testing its potential, showing her the possibilities." My blood ran cold. I watched them on the screen, my son and his girlfriend, casually plotting to monetize my home, my dream, my sanctuary. They weren't just being thoughtless and disrespectful, they were being predatory. They saw me not as a mother, but as an obstacle, a clueless old woman to be managed and manipulated. The whispers on the webcam weren't just whispers, they were a confession, and I had it all recorded. The ledger was no longer just unbalanced, it was fraudulent, and the auditor was about to begin her work. The rage I felt was cold and sharp. For years, I had managed multi-million-dollar accounts, uncovering fraud, tracking down discrepancies, and ensuring every number was accounted for. My son and his girlfriend thought they were dealing with a sweet, daughtery old mom. They had forgotten I was a professional. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel helpless. I felt focused. My first step was to treat the situation exactly like a professional audit. I needed to document everything. I created a new spreadsheet on my computer, a far cry from the retirement planners I had been using. I titled it Project Shandpiper. The columns were labeled date, infraction, estimated cost, and evidence. I started with the video I had just recorded. I saved the file to a secure cloud server and a separate hard drive, labeling it Exhibit A, the Content Strategy Confession. I transcribed the key parts of their conversation verbatim into my spreadsheet. The next morning, after they had left in their usual whirlwind of chaos, I began the physical audit. I walked through my house with a notepad and a camera, documenting the damage. The white porch railing had black scuff marks from their shoes and equipment cases. There was a wine stain on the living room rug. One of my potted tomato plants was knocked over and broken. The guest bathroom towel rack was loose, clearly having been yanked on. It was a trail of 1,000 tiny disrespects, and I recorded every single one. For each item, I calculated the cost of repair or replacement. A new rug, $350. A professional cleaner to remove scuffs, $150. A new terracotta pot and soil, $40. A replacement towel rack plus labor to install it, $120. The numbers began to add up. This was no longer just about hurt feelings. It was about tangible financial damages. My neighbor Arthur saw me examining the porch railing and came over. "Rough weekend again, Eleanor?" he asked, his voice kind. Rusty trotted beside him, nudging my hand for a pet. I hesitated for a moment. Then I decided I needed an ally, a witness. "Arthur," I said, my voice steady, "I need your advice. You were a fire chief for 30 years. You know about regulations, about property use, about legalities." I invited him in and for the first time told him everything. The constant parties, the commercial photo shoots, and finally, the conversation I had recorded. I played him the audio from my laptop. He listened intently, his expression growing more grim with every word. When it was over, he was silent for a long moment. "Well," he finally said, shaking his head, "that's not just disrespectful, Eleanor. That's a whole new level of entitled. Using your home for commercial gain without your permission, that has serious liability implications." He was my missing piece. He understood the language of rules and consequences. "What kind of implications?" I asked. "For starters, your homeowner's insurance almost certainly doesn't cover commercial activity. If one of those photographers or models had gotten hurt on your property, you could have been sued personally. They put you at massive financial risk." I opened my spreadsheet and added a new section, liability and unauthorized commercial use. Arthur helped me research the local town ordinances. It turned out that our quiet residential area had strict zoning laws. Any commercial activity, including photo shoots, required a permit and a business license. The fines for violating these ordinances were steep. "They weren't just using your house," Arthur said, his eyes glinting with the righteous indignation of a man who had spent his